Let's talk kingdom. He's the one you can lean on. He don't change, he stays the same. Won't find a better reason, no. So come tap in, just listen. And bring a friend, let's spread this vision. Let's talk kingdom. He's the one you can lean on. He don't change, he stays the same. Won't find a better reason, no. So come tap in, just listen. And bring a friend, let's spread this vision.
And shalom aleichem to each and every one of you. So glad to be with you today. I decided to be outside. I just want to smell some fresh breath, some fresh air, and enjoy the day. Hopefully you guys are enjoying yourselves and your Shabbat as we are about to proclaim, as we know, Shabbat in itself. So welcome again out by the little pool area, but just found a spot where there's some shade and it's not too hot in my region to just sit and relax in. Shabbat Shalom to every one of you. So glad to have you on broadcast with us today. Let's get into some of the good stuff about this day. And we're going to have a word of prayer. Is there anyone who would like to lead us into a study today after we finish praying? And bring ourselves into a space where we can understand and comprehend what Yahweh is really saying at all times, just by, basically make sure we're studying in His Word. So those of you on YouTube, if you'll do me a favor, if you're out there on YouTube, can you let me know if you're having any type of a problem hearing me? I have a air conditioning compressing unit over near the other area. I know it's probably making some noise. Can you guys hear me? But I love this fresh air and just relaxing.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Thank you on Clubhouse. YouTube, are you guys hearing okay on YouTube?
Yes, sir.
All right, excellent. So let us take an opportunity to pray, shall we? Father, we come before you in the precious, matchless, mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach, who is our Savior and our King. We thank you for peace. We thank you for hope. We thank you for joy. We thank you for strength. We thank you for your will. And we ask you, more importantly, that as we honor your will to sit with you in the Shabbat, that you, by your will, grace us with the wisdoms we need for the work week we're about to enter, and the season we're about to enter as we proclaim Sukkot. We proclaim Yom Teruah. We exalt you. We magnify you. We repent for any and all sin that could have possibly been done, though not by hand or though not by action, but maybe, Father, by mindset, by thought, pity-patting, entertaining, playing around with thoughts that don't please you, suggestions that are not of your writ, entertaining them. Like Paul says, I pull every thought and imagination that exalts itself against the knowledge of you. I bring them into subjection to your word. And so today we bow before you in reverence and in holiness, believing, hoping, and asking that your blood, which is sufficient for us, be sufficient in all areas of our lives. Drawing us nigh unto you, we bless, we extol, and we exalt your wonderful, magnanimous name. In the precious name of Yeshua HaMashiach, guide this conversation. Grace us with understandings that are of you. In the precious name of Yeshua HaMashiach, we do say and we do pray. Amen. All right, everybody. So welcome again to the programming. We're hoping that we can get something going. How many of you took opportunity to come up with some sense or some, anybody had any revelations going on? I'm not here to teach today. I got a whole week of teaching coming up, and it's going to be the busiest teaching season for me with Sukkah because there's so many days. I got to teach so many times. I'm not teaching. I'm not going to serve y'all. We are going to study together. How about that? And so at this time, we want to make sure that we understand that we are in Sabbath to study. So one of the things I'm going to do very quickly, as you all let us know who wants to share and or have question that we'd like to dig up and dig out. I'm going to begin this particular uh, study by mhm, prefacing it with the fundamental and the foundations for why we do this. So join me, and moderators, if you're on Clubhouse, and I think I heard Santana's name, so we'll deal with that in a few. Put them in queue. If you got a revelation, you want to share something, you got a question in the writ, please make sure you say your name out loud. Or if you're on YouTube, type it in on the thread. Just type it right in the thread, right there. Type it in, and we'll get your question, we'll get your thought, and we'll study it with you. We'll open it up for the world to see what is, in fact, your question and thought. All right. So why don't we do that? So moderators, keep that on cue for us, please. Minister Wanda, you had a question?
Yes, let's have 10 minutes first, sir.
Okay, great. Somebody answered Ben's question. I don't know what that is. I saw something flash. I don't know what that means. You all are seeing me on YouTube, correct?
Yes, we are, sir.
All right. There's no reason to be on Facebook ever again. Okay. So let us get going in the word of Elohim. And so the first thing we want to make sure we talk about is, in fact, the Shabbat. How to Shabbat. What is Shabbat? First thing and first place we want to be is in the book of Genesis, chapter number 2. And so we're going to go there very quickly. And just to put preference to what Shabbat is and how Shabbat works, Genesis chapter number 2, verses 1 through 3. Let us take time to get there. And here we go. Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3 says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, all the host of them. And on the seventh day, Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all of his work which he had made." Verse 3 states, "And Elohim baraked." Elohim blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work, which Elohim created and in fact made. All right. So we have that to look for and understand. And then you also have, that's Genesis, that's what the Torah states. So we're going to read through this so we understand why we Shabbat, why we call it a commandment, why is it something we should not be just doing any old kind of way. So how do you Shabbat? That's where we are. So in this now we run to Shemot chapter and number 16 so that we can understand what that is all about. So in chapter 16, which is before chapter 20, who knows why we deal with Exodus 16 before we deal with Exodus chapter 20, what the significance of that is? Well, I'll tell you. In Exodus chapter 20, it is the notorious place to find the 10 commandments. But Exodus chapter 20 comes after Exodus chapter 16, where you also see the command specifically for the Shabbat. before you see it in the Ten Commandments. Let that sink in. Exodus chapter 20 is the noteworthy place to know where the Ten Commandments come from. Everybody cites the Ten Commandments pretty much from Shemot 20. But we never paid attention to the fact that the commandment for Shabbat was given before Shemot chapter number 20, which is in Shemot chapter 16. When they immediately were brought out of Egypt, Israel, and they were told before the commandments were ever given, the 10 commandments as we like to group them in, but this was a commandment long before the 10 commandments. Though it's the fourth of the 10 commandments, it is yet before the 10 commandments. You saw Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, indicating that Shabbat is a command, and it was made for man. Then in Shemot 16, you find they are out of Egypt, and Israel is moving along nomadically, and yet Yahweh gives them a command before he gives them the 10 commandments. Let that sink in for a minute. All right, so let's prepare our hearts to go there very quickly. And I have it. I promise you I got it. It's right here. There we go. Shemot chapter 16, verses number, I'm going to take us down to 27 and 30 because that's what you guys pretty much know. But the whole story is something great to read in Shemot 16. So let's go down to Shemot 16, verse 27. Let's look at what it says here in verse number 27. Matter of fact, I'll start at verse number 25. And Moshe said, eat today, for today is a Sabbath unto Yahweh. Today you shall find not any manna in the field. Verse 26, 6 days shall you gather manna, but on the seventh day, which is the Shabbat, the Sabbath, in it there shall be no manna found. Verse 27, and it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day for to gather, and they found what? None. Verse 28, Yahweh then said unto Moshe, how long refuse you to keep my commandments and my Torah? My laws, my Torah, my laws. So the word law here, so you can catch this since the Torah had not yet been given in verse number 28, I want you to hear that word is Torah. So for those of you who did not know, that means the precepts, that means the statutes, that means what he has given to them. Now it comes from the word 3384, which in fact is the word yara, yara, yara. And it is in primitive root. Watch this. The primitive root is to properly to flow as water, i.e. as rain, transitively to lay or to throw, especially in an arrow. Moderators, to throw as in an arrow, to shoot figuratively, to point out as if by aiming the finger, to teach like an archer, to cast, to direct, to inform, to instruct, to lay, to show, to shoot, to teach, teacher, teaching, through. So I want you to understand that Torah has a basis in Yara, and the basis of Yara is to flow like water. So when Yahweh says, before the Torah was given, verse 28, look at your book, look at your Bible on screen, verse 28, and Yahweh said unto Moshe, how long do you refuse, Israel, to keep my commandments, my mitzvahs, and my Torah, my Yara, which help you flow like water, help you lay out? How long will you refuse to keep my pointing and aiming of you by the finger, and teachings and directions and my instructions to you? So before there is the Torah, all right, as a book, there are the teachings, the Yarah of the Torah already at play. Y'all get that?
Yes.
All right. So now in verse 28, Yahweh says to Moshe, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my Torah, my instructions, my teachings, my finger pointing of you? See, listen, pay attention. Verse 29, he says, see, for that Yahweh hath given you the Shabbat. Therefore, he hath given you on the sixth day the bread enough for 2 days. So abide ye every man in his place, and let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. Let me repeat it. Verse 29, see, Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. Somebody say it's a gift from Elohim. Say it. Say it's a gift from Elohim.
The gift from Elohim.
So he says that he has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he's given you on day 6 bread enough, manna enough for 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So, following the instructions, verse 30, the people rested on the 7th day. Okay? So the key thing there is understanding that Yahweh has, as he's promised, given a programming and a plan that is significant to what he wants to have done. He tells them before he even pens out through Moshe the Torah, before you ever get to Shemot 20, where he gives you the 10 commandments as, our little abbreviation of the Torah. And he's like, listen, Sabbath, you fresh out of Egypt. You're 30 days out of Egypt. Okay, you're just 30 days out of Egypt. You are not to go out of your place on the 7th day. Some of you are this day old realizing that. So when we talk about worshiping on the 7th day, they didn't go down to the tabernacle. They were not to leave. Let me give the words so y'all can hear it, not that I'm making it up. They were not to leave their space on the 7th day. Look at verse 29, part B. He says, abide ye every man in his place. That's your home. That's your property line, whatever that is. Do not leave your property line, your place that you deem a domicile, a residency, and that could be your front yard, your backyard, your side yard, your pool, your lake out back. If you got all of that, don't leave that area. Don't leave the place of your deeded residency on that day. Don't leave your place on the 7th day. So to leave my place and go down to the church building or the tabernacle for that matter is disobedience to the word. It's non-compliance to the writ. So keeping that in mind by reading it into your heart is the most important and significant thing. So I'm hoping that you guys get this, you guys realize this and understand this, that Sabbath had an instruction before the commandments were put into the book, before the commandments was written on parchment. Shabbat was a commandment off written, and it was designed to be a gift to all of humanity. So look now as we move into the next passage. The next passage that you and I have is, in fact, Jeremiah chapter number 17. And so in Jeremiah 17, you're hearing from the prophet Jeremiah, who only speaks Yahweh's word. Now, this is not in the Torah. You are in the Nephilim, but you are going to hear from one who only speaks Torah. So in Jeremiah chapter 17, verse number 24, let me pull that up on screen for you guys so you can see it. Jeremiah 17, verse number 24. For those of you that might need to know this, look closely at the writ. Very important to do. As you can see, I'm in the book of Jeremiah. I'm in chapter number 24, 17, but I'm also in verse number 24, right? But what I'm going to do is read up 3 verses. And I'm going to go to 21. Verse 21 says, "Thus says Yahweh, take heed to yourselves and bear no burden on the 7th day, nor bring it in by the gates of Jerusalem. Neither carry forth a burden out of your houses on the Sabbath day. Neither do ye any work. Rather, hallow the Shabbat day as I commanded your fathers." Verse 23, the prophet Jeremiah speaks on behalf of Yahweh. Verse 23 says, "But they obeyed not, neither inclined their ear, but made their necks stiff, and they did not hear, nor receive instruction." Verse 24 says, "And it shall come to pass, if you diligently hearken unto me, says Yahweh, to bring in no burden through the gates of the city on the Shabbat day, but rather hallow, Kodesh, the Shabbat, to do no work therein. Then there shall enter into the gates of this city kings and princesses sitting upon the throne of David, riding in chariots, on horses, they and their princes, and the men of Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and this city shall remain forever." Now, I'm not going to read 3 down, but I wanted to give you the point and context for why verse 24 exists in that passage. And verse 24 exists in that passage because Yahweh, through the prophet Jeremiah, is explaining to the children of Israel, I told your fathers and them don't do it. I'm telling you, if you want to be restored, to don't do it. Don't bring a burden. Don't carry a burden out of your house on the Sabbath, and don't carry a burden into your house on the Sabbath. And don't do exasperating work in the Sabbath. Then that word work is servile work, meaning service to other people. Okay? And this is a significant thing. So people will tell you, well, in not understanding Sabbath, that you can't cook. You can cook on Sabbath. But what Israel was dealing with in the wilderness, where they had no stove, they had no no conveniences. They were nomadic, literally campers traveling. And so to get the manna, they didn't have refrigerators and cupboards to store it in those 40 years leaving Egypt. They had to, in fact, collect daily as Yahweh provided. So every morning they'd wake up and manna would be on the ground. They had to go out and collect that manna. Everybody thinks that manna jumped in the basket. No, they had to bend their back, bend their knee, and pick that manna up out the dirt. And if you've ever been like, I'm from South Jersey, so I know farming pretty well. I know picking and harvesting pretty well. To get what you need, an omer per household, you had to work to get that. You didn't pick that manna up without sweat. You didn't pick that manna up without saying, "Oh, my knees. Oh God, my back." You did. You didn't pick that manna up without having felt that you got it. Now you're glad you got it. You'll gladly put the work in to get it, especially if you have no bread. But no one said picking that manna up was easy. It was easier than having to plant the grain, fertilize the grain, shickle out the grain. But it was not easy as no work at all. Because remember, days 1 through 6, we work. Day 7, we rest. I'm hoping that some of y'all got that. I hope it makes a little bit of sense to some people right now, if y'all get that. So just because they had God provided them manna, they still had to go carry the basket, to get the manna, collect it out the dirt, get it up, whatever needed to be done, and then carry it back to the tent, knead it out, roll it out, and all that. So it wasn't so much the kneading and the rolling that went on. It was the fact that Yahweh had provided for them and told them, don't let the work part catch you on the Sabbath. So I'm going to give you enough on day 6 so you don't have to work at all on day 7. And you might as well go ahead in that condition. Don't have to start a fire, because do y'all know it took work to start a fire? Yeah. You working to start that fire, whether you're using flint rock, whether you're using sticks, whether you're using whatever. It takes work to start a fire. You and I have been very much convenienced in our time for many centuries with having automation and technology help us with lighting, fire for a stove, and or heat, and or warm heat, cooking, light, and now we've even augmented by technology the use of that through electricity. So, but to make fire back then, they didn't have a big lighter. They didn't have a box of matches. They had to make the fire. That took work. They sweat to make that fire. They labor, blowing to make that fire. If you've ever made a fire, thank God for my days of a little bit of Boy Scouting, to learn how to make that fire, get that friction, it depended on the day. Okay? So you got to, that's very good, Minister Wanda. You had to gather sticks to make a fire. You're working. You had to gather the manna to eat the bread. So as Wanda put, I just happened to look over and see YouTube. Wanda put a statement, Minister Wanda Floyd put a statement that says, that's why you find in the record of the Bible that they stoned a man for gathering sticks on the Sabbath, because that man, under the same rule that everybody else was under, broke that rule. And they were like, yo, bro, we never had that spirit run rampant all over the house. You think you can do it when you want to do it and do it how you want to do it? No. They killed out that spirit. Now, y'all think that is just so horrible. Thou shalt not kill, but the wage of sin then was definitely death. And so the man was killed for gathering sticks, because on the Sabbath day, he wasn't to do that. And nor were they supposed to gather manna on the Sabbath. So for you and I saying that, Sabbath day worship, I go to church. You're not supposed to do that. Preacher, you're not supposed to serve the people on that day. Ushers, you're not supposed to serve them fans and sit them down, and the napkin ministry is not supposed to be there, and the parking lot ministry and the security team and the drummers and the keyboards and the bass players, all of that is served to have a church service. And Yahweh wants to come into your home and give you service. And this is where we make the mistake about Sabbath worship. Do y'all get that? And so when Yahweh says, don't leave out your deeded property line, you can hang out all over your property. You ain't got to lock yourself in the house or lock yourself in the room. You don't not have to now, because of conveniences, you don't have to worry about gathering the items. If you got them in your storehouse, you've got them in your cupboard, you've got them in your refrigerator, you've got them in your freezer. You can take them out and you can still go ahead and saute up some stuff. You're not working. You're feeding yourself and your family. So you're okay with that. That's why the stoves have been engineered by individuals who were concerned about making a fire through excess energy. And that's how you got stoves and the pilot light. It's for those of us who come back from the days when fire was the predominant way to make your stove work rather than electricity, which came years later. But you had to have a pilot light. You kept a pilot light so you didn't have to start a fire to get light. And that pilot light could start a fire. That pilot light could light another candle. That pilot light could light, whatever you needed to put on the potbelly stove. That pilot light, you push some gas through it, it could spark, and now you got all your cylinders working, and you can put a pot of water that you got from right here and put it on the stove and boil up some corn or whatever you need to do, and you're not working, you're not violating the Torah. But to carry a burden and to work. Now, I'm not telling you to cook a Thanksgiving Day meal in Sabbath. But what I'm telling you is if you've prepared and the need for warming, you even now have the microwave. That if you click the microwave, put it in there. For those of you who are really into that, it's okay. And now you got the deep fryer, not the deep fryer, but the air fryer. It's simple. You just push a button. Now you got the washing machine and or the dryer where you wash and dry your clothes. Whereas before on Sabbath, you couldn't, any day, you had to drag your clothes either down to the water or drag substantial water up to the house or have it irrigated up somehow and wash on a brick or edge or scrub hard and then wring out, and it's if you've ever had to do that, I'm thankful to Yahweh. I've learned that stuff. You got to wring it out. When I was coming up, they had just come up with the wringer that was a white tower with 2 roller pins or 3 roller pins inside, and you had a crank that helped you to move the clothing, the denim, real denim, not this fake denim y'all wearing today, not this denim lookalike, real jeans, real wool blankets, and you got to wring it through because it helped you to dry out by getting the excess water out. But before there was that wringer, you had to get your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, and y'all have to wring that thing together and stand apart and squeeze it, you know what I mean? And you got to work out. You had muscles when you did that, right? And then, that would help with hanging them on the line, clothespins. But you couldn't just hang up there drenching wet. The clothespin, the hanger, the yard hanger would fall and collapse. The rope would be saturated, wet, and overly saturated, and over time it would wear out. So you wrung out the excess water, then you hung the clothes on the line. So those are the things that we need to understand about Sabbath keeping. And why am I pushing this? Because Jeremiah the prophet reminds the people of the Torah, of the words that Yahweh gave Israel in day 30 or so after they came out of Egypt. And he says, don't do any laborious work on the Sabbath. Going out to get manna, though I provided you, is still labor intensive. And yes, you'll eat the rewards of that, but I don't want the labor on that day, just the reward. So you do all the labor on day 6, then you're able to eat of that bread on day 7. So people would say, well, Apostle, if that's the case, then for certain groups that I know listen to us and we love them, they love us. But an argument comes up, and not a fight, but an argument comes up that, well, there you go. You can't cook on the Sabbath. No, that's not it. What went on was they couldn't, by Yahweh's command, keep leftovers except for day 6. And in order to eat the manna, barring that exception, they would have to collect the manna because they had no real place to store it. So therefore, every day it was fresh, so they had to do the work fresh. Then they made the dough fresh. This was the only exception. So, well, that's why he didn't want them doing it. No, that would mean that they would have to go and get the manna off the ground. Yahweh put that exception in because to make the bread in that day, under those circumstances, in that dynamic, they had to have collected the manna daily because it was given fresh, once the sun and the clouds came out, the clouds went up and the sun came on, it would melt away. So they had to collect it. So I mean, they had to work fast, they had to work quick, they had to work hard, and then cook it. So just understand that as you move forward. Um, so now let's get back to why we Shabbat. What do we do? What is the deal? What's the process? What's really going on with the Shabbat? So the next thing you want to learn about Sabbath keeping is in Exodus chapter 20. Like I showed you before, in Shemot chapter 20, it's very important to realize that this is after the commandments were given, after he gave the actual charge to keep Sabbath. So let's take opportunity to look at this. In Shemot chapter 20, Exodus chapter 20, and we'll go down to verse number 8. I'll start at verse 1. Exodus chapter 20 is where we typically pull the 10 commandments from, right? Which is an abbreviation for the other commandments, the 613 commandments that Yahweh gave us. So verse 1 says, Elohim spake all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, which have brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Commandment 1. Thou shalt make no graven images of any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, Yahweh your Elohim, am Elohim Kanu, visiting the iniquities of the fathers upon the children to the third and the fourth generations of them that hate me. Because it takes 3 to 4 generations to literally make something like a gospel truth. Verse number 6, some of y'all might not catch that. Verse 6 says, showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments, my mitzvahs. Verse 7, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not hold them guiltless that takes his name in vain. So remember, this is not you taking the name of Jesus in vain. Let me look y'all in your eyeballs. That's not taking the name of Jesus in vain. Or as people say, and I know it's a profane thing to do, but I want to be very clear. You understand, Yahweh don't care if you taking the name of Jesus in vain. So the whole Jesus H Christ thing that they're doing, and they say that doesn't bother the Father. At the name of Yahshua, every knee will bow. But here, in this sense, Yahweh is very clear. Don't take the name Yahweh, the name of the Lord, in vain. You understand? Don't take the name Yahweh in vain. Let me bring it up again so you can see it clearly. I didn't make that up. Verse 7, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain. He didn't say Jesus. He didn't even say Yeshua. So that whole thing, when people hear you or something goes on, you'll hear people say, oh, Jesus H, Christ or whatever. Y'all made it a cuss word because it supposedly takes the name of our Lord in vain. Your problem is misassociating capital, all caps L-O-R-D with L-O-R-D. Lord and Lord, they're different. That's Yahweh. You can call that Jesus, landlord, master, whatever. No disrespect. That's just the principle of the language being used here. So he says, thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh, your Elohim, in vain. Not the name Jesus in vain. Y'all got that? Let me get back to teaching Sabbath.
Yes, I got it.
So in Shabbat, he goes on to indicate in verse number, Exodus, Shemot 20, verses number 7, I'll repeat it. Thou shalt not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, for Yahweh, Elohim, will not hold that person guiltless that takes his name in vain. Okay, verse number 8. Remember Shabbat. Verse 8. Notice from verses 1 through 7, he says, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. But here he says, remember. what I already gave y'all. Remember the Shabbat to keep it holy. Remembering that 6 days shall you labor, commandment, and do all your work. But in the seventh day, which is the Sabbath of Yahweh, who is your Elohim, in it you shall not do any work, thou, your sons, your daughters, manservant, maidservant, cattle, strangers within your gate. Because like Elohim, 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all them that therein is, and rested on the seventh day. Wherefore Yahweh barak, Yahweh blessed the seventh day, the Sabbath day, and he kodeshed it. And then you move into the next commandment. So again, how to Shabbat, you don't leave your space on Sabbath, and you don't do servile work on Sabbath. But you washing your clothes, that's not servile. That's you kneading garment, you making some oatmeal or some eggs or some meat for dinner that's already prepped, already set up, and getting it hot. So you're eating a hot meal. That's not against Torah. And there are a lot of people who think that is, but it's not backed up by the writ. So what the writ states is you shall do no work. Now, like I said, I'm not telling you to put on no catering event for 18 family members at the house. I'm not talking about you doing a family reunion. I'm not talking about you doing a holiday of man, eating holiday, like what's coming up in November and December and January of this month. So we're talking about mandatory eating, in that day. And that's not something difficult when you have the provisions to preserve for further use. Now, if you have to go out and hunt down that deer, or hunt down that bread, or chop down that grain, that's a whole other ballgame. Now you're incorporating work. But to have it in your refrigerator, to take the wrap off of, the aluminum foil or the wax paper or the styrofoam, whatever, to get it out of the package and put it on a griddle that has a pilot light that you just turn a knob like that. There's no work in that. Did I work hard? No, but the pilot light now triggers gas, and the gas is going to come on, and I get a fire, and I can control it just like this. Am I working? No, I'm not. Or I grab a bunch of clothes out of my hamper, and I put them inside my washer, and then I push a button. I pour in some fabric softener. I push a button. I put the lid down. Did I work? No work. Or I put those clothes out of the washer into the dryer, shut the door, throw in some Snuggles or some Downy, and then push the button to start it. And you were told that this is something you don't do. So people would have their houses in total disarray unless they set it up on Friday, which you should, right? Labor to enter in. But at the end of the day, I just want to make sure we get it. You don't have to do all the religious stuff that sounds like God with respect to that. What he has given is a commandment we should follow. So don't leave your house. But the same people that will tell you don't iron, you don't cook, you don't dry clean, you don't dryer, you don't wash. The same people are telling us to go down 8 blocks over or to the street corner to get into a building that's not my property, not my deeded property, and drive through traffic, risk cussing somebody out because they cut you off, risk being upset because you got a flat tire, having to stop and get gas, meaning you got to buy gas because you didn't get gas on Friday. Y'all get what I'm saying? So the same people that's telling you can't iron, you can't cook, you can't do this, but you're going to go to church. Dear heart, that's crazy. I don't even understand how we don't make the connection. Oh, I know why. Because it was indoctrinated. It was generations, 3 to 4 generations have said, this is what you do. We got the Sabbath day back. We're going to go to church and we're going to praise Elohim. You don't praise Elohim by going to the sanctuary on the Sabbath unless it is a high holy Sabbath day. The 7th day, every week Sabbath, you are home. You become the place he dwells. You become the church. You become the tabernacle he dwells in. Elohim doesn't dwell in tabernacles made by man's hands, but he does dwell in the tabernacle made by his. That's you, that's me. So I'm hoping that we are understanding that when it comes to how to Shabbat and all the different myths and theories around Sabbath, causing conflict within the faith, as it were. You and I are not to leave our deeded property line, whether you have a rent lease, whether you own the property in several acres, you have the right to roam that property and all the acreage you got on the Sabbath. Just don't leave it. And then don't drag, don't go cutting the grass. Okay. On the Sabbath. Don't go doing this, that, or the other on the Sabbath. So we can understand what that looks like. So when we consider all of this, this is how you Sabbath, based on the word of Elohim. And the bigger part of how we ended up thinking you go to church on the Sabbath is because you thought Jesus went on the 7th day Sabbath to teach in the synagogues. And that's not what that was. You need to understand when they went, when he taught in the tabernacle. He was preaching to the Levites. It was on a high holy Sabbath day. It wasn't on the 7th day Sabbath. Messiah would never disobey Elohim's word, would he? Did he? No. Did Yahweh change the 7th day Sabbath or change the high holy day Sabbaths? No. The high holy days, you gather the 7th day of the week, you sit home and let him come in and invite him into your home, invite him into your space, and you give him the high seat in your space, meaning you open his word like you're doing now and learn of him. Sit down and learn of him. You don't go to the church to jump and shout, not this 7th day. The high Moedim, the high holy days you do, that's very, very probable and very feasible. But in the 7th day, you don't leave your home to go to the church down the block, thinking that you're going to the house of God. You are the house of God. And those houses of God coagulate together on the high holy days for the purpose of dwelling together in unity. But the 7th day Sabbath, you make a personal decision to comply with becoming a place he wants to reside. He comes down every 7th day in those 24 hours, wherever you live, to be with you and looking for anybody seeking him. All right? I'm hoping that this makes sense to you all.
Yes, it makes sense.
Good to hear.
Yes, sir.
Now let's get back to the Sabbath and what we have here in how to Shabbat. Looking on your screens, we'll be very clear here that you found in Exodus chapter Shemot 20, verses 8 through 11, that you don't leave your home. You got a commandment in there that the 7th day you rest. You got a commandment in there that 6 days shall you work. And that's a significant thing. So now in Isaiah chapter 58, another prophet who speaks only Torah, Isaiah chapter 58, Let's all gather and go there. Isaiah chapter 58. Let's look at the writ. It goes on to indict these things. Verse number 13 and 14 are where I want to focus with you. Isaiah 58. Let's go down to verse 13 and 14. Look at this instruction. Very key. As a matter of fact, for those of you watching, Isaiah 58 is very significant, not only as a teacher of Sabbath observance, but it is specifically written around the feast season of Sukkot. This particular teaching on how to keep Sabbath is written, and Israel, having disobeyed it, is being reminded of the importance of Yom Kippur, the fast and the holy day that Yahweh called for. And this helps to teach what Shabbat is all about. Let's look at the passage. So I'm proclaiming Sukkot. I'm proclaiming Yom Teruah. Let's read the writ. Verse 13, he says, Yahweh tells the people through the prophet Isaiah, if you turn away your foot from the Shabbat, from doing your pleasure on my holy day, and if you will call the Sabbath a delight, if you will call the Sabbath holy of Yahweh, if you will call the Sabbath honorable, and shall honor him, Elohim, by not doing your own ways, nor finding your own pleasures, nor speaking your own words. Then, if you do those things, shall you delight yourself in Yahweh. And Yahweh goes on to say in verse 14, I will cause you to ride upon the high places of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken it. So when we read this passage, he tells you in verse 13, if you'll go back with me, in verse 13, he goes on to state, and I want y'all to get this, because in verse 13, he's really clear that you don't speak your own words, meaning you don't get into your own drama. That's your favorite vlogs and blogs and stuff like that. You don't speak your own words. You're only speaking around his Torah, which is his word, around his word, which is your life. You don't speak your own words. You don't do your own thing in that respect. You live and honor him in that day. So look at what he says about what's specific. He says, if you turn away your foot in the Sabbath from doing your own pleasure, you don't do your own thing. If you call that day holy, if you call that day a delight, if you call this day holy unto Yahweh, if you call this day honorable, and if you will honor him by not doing your own ways, nor finding your own stuff to do, nor speaking your own words. So if I'm not to speak my own words, what words am I to speak? Can somebody type in all caps his, or all caps Elohim's, or all caps Adonai? It's just, that's what it is. So I'm not to speak my own words, which means I'm learning his language. We talked about that earlier this morning, about knowing the language of Elohim, right? And this becomes offensive to certain people who feel that you know God based on a couple verses from the Bible, and not realizing that the word of God is in the Bible and it is to be followed because it's his command and his charge. All right. So let's get into now another passage of how to Shabbat. This brings us to the New Testament, the Brit Hadassa. And in Mark chapter number 2, very important place to be as well, you find out that Yahweh has a plan and has done some things and is looking for stuff to develop. But Messiah is now contending with a lot of the individuals who are supposed to be masters and teachers of the Torah, and they are doing everything they can do to bring discredit and shame to Yeshua, saying that he's not keeping Torah, he's not doing what Yahweh wants. But look at what he says in the book of Mark, chapter 2, verses 27 through 28. Let's get to that passage now. So I'll start at verse number 25. And he said unto them, have you never read what King David did? This is Yeshua. This is Yeshua talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees who say he's unlawful. I'll go to verse number 24. Matter of fact, I'll go to verse 23. And it came to pass that he went through the cornfields of the Sabbath day, and his disciples began as they went to pluck ears of corn. Now, if this was a Sabbath day, question to the group, if this was a Sabbath day, would they be moving if it was a seventh day Sabbath? Would they be walking if it was a seventh day Sabbath?
No.
Would the priests be out in the streets if it was a seventh day Sabbath?
No.
Would Yeshua be out in the streets if it was a seventh day Sabbath?
No.
So verse 23, and it came to pass that he went through the cornfields on the Sabbath day, meaning they're heading towards the tabernacle. And his disciples began on their way to pluck ears of corn. The Pharisees said unto him, behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? Well, how would they have seen them doing this if this was a seventh day Sabbath and not a high holy day Sabbath, a Moedim? And this is where Christianity has to come up to speed on understanding the culture and how the Torah affected it. So verse 24, the Pharisees said unto him, behold, why do you do on the Sabbath that which is not lawful? Verse 25, and he said unto them, have you never read, Mr. Pharisee man, what King David did when he had need and on the Sabbath? Because David was hungry, him and all the men that were following him, but they kept Sabbath. Did you not read what he did? Verse 25, when he had need and was hungry, and he that were with him. Verse 26, how he went into the house of Elohim in the days of Abiathar, the high priest. Now, question to the masses. Does King David go into the house of Elohim on a seventh day Sabbath?
No.
What day is he allowed to go into the house of Elohim? So if he would have came in there trying to take the showbread off the table, the Levites would have gladly killed him, anointing or not. Somebody say, make it make sense.
Make it make sense.
So look at what he says now. Verse number 25, I want to make sure you got this. He says, they were hungry. Verse 26, he went into the house of Elohim during the days of the high priest Abiathar. And he did, in fact, eat the showbread because he had need. They were hungry, which is not lawful to eat except for the priests. And then David also gave the showbread to those that were with him because the people had need. It was sitting on the showbread. Now watch. Even the priests left that bread sit there on the Sabbath. Okay, let me move on. I'm going to see if that clicks for somebody. So he says in verse 27, he said unto them, listen, y'all. He said unto them, listen, y'all. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Therefore, the Son of Man, not the Son of God. Therefore, the Son of Man is Lord also of Shabbat. because Shabbat was made for the Son of Man. Shabbat was made for the human. All right, let's move on. We're going to lose a lot of people based on that. Same thing is told to us in Luke chapter number 6. If you'll gather your Bibles and go with me to Luke chapter 6 in the Brit Hadessa. Luke chapter 6, verses 3 through 5. Let's join ourselves over there real quick. Luke 6, 3 through 5 tells pretty much the same story, same place. Yeshua answering said unto them, have you not read so much as what King David did when he himself was hungered, and they that were with him, how he went into the house of Elohim and did eat the showbread, and also gave the showbread to them that were with him, which is technically not legal to do or to eat. Only the priests and the priest alone can eat it. Verse 5. And he said unto them, listen. He said unto them that the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. And it came to pass also on another Sabbath, he entered into the synagogue and taught. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. So we're talking about this work on Sabbath, but we're also dealing with the reality that when he says, you don't just enter into Sabbath any day. And where we got twisted in reading the story of Mark is thinking that, any Sabbath he does this. But it states when he, on another Sabbath, went into the synagogue. Because these are Moedims he's moving in and out of the synagogues on when he's allowed to teach. Understood? Because in each Moedim, the families are scheduled in many instances to speak, to read, to stand up and read the writ. And these are important things to understand. So let's get back to how to Shabbat. The last passage we want is Hebrews chapter number 4. Let's get there. Hebrews chapter number 4, verses 4 through 12. And I'll start in verse number 1 just to give us the context of what goes on here. Hebrews 4. Matter of fact, I'll just start at verse 4. How about we do that? I am waiting for specific questions. I'm waiting to see if anybody picked up on it, but I'll wait. Verse 4. Well, you can't do verse 4 without doing verses 1. Verse 1 says, let us therefore fear, lest a promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them, meaning the people in Moshe's day. But the word preached did not profit them, because it wasn't mixed with faith in them that heard it. For we, which have believed, we do enter into rest. You see that? For we which have believed do enter into rest, as he said, as I have sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake in a certain place on the seventh day this way, and Elohim rested the seventh day from all of his works. He's just reciting Bereshit, chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. So verse 5 goes on to say, and in this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. Verse 6, seeing therefore Sabbath remains, that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached did not enter in because of their unbelief. Let me read verse 6 again, because some of y'all thought I quoted it wrong. He says, seeing therefore it remains. Well, what remains? Sabbath, people, Sabbath rest. It still remains. Why? Seeing therefore that it remains, that some must enter therein. That's me and you. and our offspring. Every human still needs to enter into rest. That's why it remains, because we all need to enter in order for us to please the Father. But some of us, like those it was first preached to, we won't enter in because we got our own belief on it. So verse 6 and 7, again, let me read it in context for you so the perspective I gave you can make sense. Seeing it remains that some must enter in, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. Again, he limiteth a certain day, saying, indeed, today, after so long a time, as it is said, today, if you will hear his voice. This is a Sabbath day. Harden not your hearts. And let me help y'all. Verse 8 says, for if Yeshua had given them rest like they claim, then Yeshua would not have afterwards spoken of another day. Verse 9, because of that, there remains a rest, the Sabbath, to comply with for the people of Elohim. For he that is entered into his rest, somebody say Sabbath, he also ceased from his own works, just as Elohim did from his. Verse 11, y'all know this passage, one of my favorites. You see it every Sabbath. Let us labor because of that to enter into the Sabbath, lest any man falls after the same example of their own version of believing this. Does this make sense, Zion?
Yes, it does.
Now, verse 12 is another kicker. Some of y'all might get this. Some of y'all may have to wait a while, but I hope you all will. For the word of Elohim is quick. Why is the word being brought up here? Because in Sabbath, all you do is not speak your own words. So whose words will you speak? The words of Elohim. So in Sabbath, you're being told and shown here in Hebrews, you're in Sabbath speaking only his word, because his word, the word of Elohim, verse 12, is quick. The word of Elohim is powerful. The word of Elohim is sharper than any two-edged sword. The word of Elohim is piercing, even to dividing asunder of soul and spirits that you could have had attracted to you. And the word of Elohim is powerful and sharp, and sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing to the dividing of soul and spirit and of joints and marrow, and is a discerner. The word of Elohim is a discerner, and the word of Elohim is a discerner of the thoughts and the intents of my heart, of your heart, of the heart. And for the record, verse 13, I'm not going to read it. Yes, I will. Neither is there any creature, when the word of God is present, that is not made manifest in its sight. But all things, because of the word of Elohim, are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. So that's what Shabbat is really aiding us and helping us with. And many of us need to really sort of kind of get on board with that, no matter how late in the game or late in life you are, or it's been, or we are, because at the end of the day, we have to know what the word of Elohim is talking about. And the word is a discerner, and the word is the quick and the powerful, and the word is the sharp and the two-edged sword, and the word is where we go to get rest, to get hope. That's why you have Sabbath, so you can consume the word, because of all those attributes of verse 12. But if you're sitting around just reading your Bible, talking about, I'm reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, I'm reading, Ephesians, and I'm reading, Romans, and I'm reading, that's great to read them when the word leads you to them for an example of what the word has set as a foundation. Go to Romans, go to Psalms, go to Ecclesiastes to see what this foundation looks like in practical act. That's a different kind of reading. That's a different kind of study. The word of Elohim is in fact life, and that life can lighten your life. All right. So we've done all that we do here on the platform for that to make sure we know how to Shabbat, what Shabbat is all about. And y'all, this that we showed you right here, these little passages right here, these passages are just a few, and I do mean a tiny few, that help you understand how to Sabbath. I just find them the most effective ones because of the way we are all taught within Christendom. Many people don't read the Torah like they should, the Old Testament like they should. You're all New Testament. So this helps to bring all the stuff you've heard preached into constructive thought, hoping that it helps you guys today as we continue on our way into how to Sabbath. So now that we got that part officially out the way, y'all see how fast we did that? I did that in less than an hour. It usually takes us 2 days. But I do know there were some questions and thoughts. Sam 10, I think, had a revelation. Do not respond yet. But I believe that during the time of one of the passages, Prophetess Leslie, you had, I'm assuming, interjected on someone's behalf about a question of the passage we were on.
Yes, Minister Wanda was before me.
All right, I'm talking. I got you.
Okay.
Tell me what I need to know.
Yeah. Brother Christ, I'll put it back. Christ, I'll put it back up here. But I was wondering about you addressing the priest not eating.
All right.
The holiday.
So are you interjecting as a mod or as your personal question?
My personal question.
Okay, your personal question is what?
I couldn't come off on you. About Mark, the 2nd chapter, where you talked about the priests not eating, that they left the showbread.
Right, because
elaborate on that.
Yeah, it's real simple. Because the priests didn't work on the high holy day, so the showbread is left in the sanctuary, just like it would be elsewhere. 6 days shall you work, right? So they would prepare the bread, they would prepare the showbread, and have it sitting in there even overnight. So the priest wouldn't collect it up until the Sabbath was over. David was hungry, and that bread was left there. So it wasn't that the priests weren't eating. Remember, there's 12 loaves of showbread. There's hundreds of thousands of Levites. So it wasn't like they was in dire need of the bread. That was just an action of commandment by Elohim for how his house runs. I want the 12 bread stack. I want the 12 because each loaf represented one of the tribes. So surely, they would eat that. Again, being reminded that we are responsible for teaching the children of Israel all things Torah, because the priests can't even get that bread until the people of Elohim are creating a harvest to get it. And that harvest creation is based on compliance to the writ, which the Levites are responsible for keeping in front of the children of Israel. Yes, there's a personal responsibility, but their job is to make sure and keep the people remembering, hey, Yahweh will bless us if we do XXX and so. Here's what XXX and so says. And then the people would go and apply that to their work ethic and their efforts. And when it produces, they come back and give. And that's how the Levites, the priests, ate. Because the Levites don't eat nothing until the people get everything. All right. So them not eating wasn't that they were in dire need, but it's a ceremonial command, a protocol. And David knew also his rights, that he was a master in the Sabbath, and whenever he had need and he was in Sabbath, everything was at his at his disposal because he has a true need. So David, knowing his rights, knowing the Torah the way he does, he eats the showbread, knowing that the Levites are not going to be trying to kill him because they know he has a right to that in the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for the man. Now, if he tried to do this on day 6, or he tried to do this on any other day, yeah, they'd have killed him. But they knew his rights. He knew his rights. And the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. I hope that gives some insight. Prophetess, does that give help?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And what is this about the author? I got a question of his up on the screen.
Yes, you did.
So the author's question was, would cutting your grass using a riding lawnmower be considered work? I usually wait now until Sunday, but was curious. Yes, bro. If you got them horsepowers, you sitting on that horsepower, you got to steer that thing. I've done my landscaping, my land care, lawn care companies for many years, and you working, you sweating, you got a whole bunch of kinetic energy going on, and you're not just gonna stop at cutting and riding the lawnmower. You got to pull out the weed whacker, you got to pull out the edger, you got to pull out the shears. So yeah, you working. You're not gonna stop at just cutting the grass. You got to take that spade and push back the dirt. You got to take that spade and push back the rocks and get it off the concrete. So yeah, you are working technically. But I would say, to answer your question, in sight of the Torah, this, though a convenience, you'd still be working. Yes. Thanks for asking the question. Let me know if that helped, bro. All right. Mods, what's in queue? Someone share with me what we need to be doing.
Santana will be next, sir.
Santana.
Shabbat shalom. Sorry. So I totally had forgotten that Hebrews 4 was one of the texts for Sabbath keeping. But after our call this morning, I was led there pretty much to study why people believe that Jesus did away with this Sabbath keeping. So that's why I was led. So I'm glad to know that was the last of the Sabbath, how to Sabbath, as we were just reading it. But as I did it by myself, which of course I'm thinking I done came to some revelation. But I just felt it was really, the unbelief kept sticking out to me. And so as I got down to the bottom of 4, it talks about the high priest. It's in there twice, actually, in Hebrews 4. And so right before that is Hebrews 3, that talks about the high priest, of course, Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. And I had to go back and kind of read that for context for 4. That was just me and how I was taught by, my apostle. Anyway, when I got in 3, I just found it was odd that that unbelief part again stuck out to me. And it actually said, it's Hebrews 3 and 12, take heed, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief. And I was like, wait, I didn't quite connect unbelief to an evil heart, even though I kept hearing stiff-necked through all of the other passages too that we kind of recently reading. So I kind of just thought, I didn't see it as a evil in the way that it said it in Hebrews 3 for unbelief. And that could be nothing, but that's just my takeaway.
Well, it's not nothing. It is a real thing. So if you were to actually understand that unbelief is all right, I'll tell you what. Unbelief. Now you read from 3. I'm going to go to 4, and I'm going to go to 4:11, where it talks about unbelief in a certain way. So in 4:11, he goes on to give us this word. I'll put my Bible on the screen for you to see it. In 4:11, didn't do it then. Now you got it. Okay. In 4:11, He goes on to state, let us labor therefore to enter in, lest any man fall after the same example of unbelief, which he's referencing chapter 3 as well. And if you had read that, you'd know that. But in chapter 4, verse 11, here is what he says. That word unbelief is the Greek word 543, which is apithia, right? In some cases, apathy, but I'm not going to go there with y'all. But apithia, it is a disbelief. It can be and is obstinate, and it is also rebellious. It is purposefully disobedient, and therefore you still have unbelief. So the word here, helping with the definition, is rebellious. So verse 11 would say, for let us therefore labor and enter into that rest, lest any man should fall after the same example of rebellious.
Which is evil. I see.
Got it? So that is how you properly utilize what you have with that. Okay? Does that help, Santana?
Yes, sir. Can I ask
Yahweh?
you one more point?
Okay.
And I don't know if it's really a question, but I kind of seen what you've been helping us with in reading these scriptures for Sabbath keeping. And again, I went through all the way through Hebrews 4, but it does really speak about, I think what you're teaching is you don't have your faith the way you think you have it. Even when we went to the studying of law and flowing like water, there has to be a foundation, and just Jesus coming doesn't get rid of that foundation. That's why I believe we're really lost, even in church, is because that foundation to flow like water in holding fast to these commandments and statutes and laws. Since I've been in this ministry, have felt that even more recently, where it feels like a flow of water, and how he just guides you. But that's from what we're talking here, to go see what the word says. Stick to Torah, that's God's word. So again, I don't think it's really a question. I just really seen it.
It's a statement.
Off the page to me.
Yeah, and to enhance your statement, when it says it's like a flow, first off, that indicts. When we looked at the word law in Shemot 16, which is before the Torah was written out, it was still a command, still a mitzvah. And the thing is that because it was an instruction, a direction, it was his word. So when we talk about a flow like water, it's an indictment that the word of Elohim is like water. It causes the flow. It's like water. It causes the current. Current is where you get monetary currency from. So we don't make the connections because we are so intellectual that it is so hard for us a lot of times to just be simple, to talk about how hard it is to be simple, how hard simplicity can be when we have so many things convoluting our thoughts and our minds. And Yahweh said, just be simple, just be quiet. You know how hard that is for you and I today, just be quiet? If you tell somebody, and I counsel a lot, and I'm in conversations a lot, and I'll tell somebody, hey, just be quiet. You know what they say? Okay, I will. Okay, no, just be quiet. No, I will. Just be quiet. Okay, I will. Just be quiet. Just stop talking. Right? It's just hard to do the simple thing that the request sought. I found that funny. I don't know if y'all find that funny. But
I know I do it when I talk to you, so I'm a little embarrassed.
Well, okay, cool. But I wasn't talking about you. But hey, if the shoe fits, I get it. But like even when you tell your children, I said be quiet. Okay. Just be quiet. Okay. Just be quiet. You know, and they still can't get it done. It's funny to me. So anyway, the simplicity becomes hard because we have all this knowledge in our heads. And the indictment that the word law, Torah, comes from Yara, indicating that the word is like water. It causes a flow. And you don't have life on dirt without a flow of water. So I just wanted to enhance that.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. All right, Maz, who's next?
Wanda, it would be me, sir. Goodbye, too long. Last night I was reading 24 and then Leviticus 24.
Background got you twisted. Too much air between your mic. What you got? Say it again.
It's just my phone, so I don't have anything else on.
Oh, I'm just saying. Okay. There's an echo. Okay, what you got?
So I was reading Leviticus 24, and I had a question. I'm sorry, Leviticus 25. And I had a question because it's talking about all the way until you get to a certain verse. It's talking about the Jubilee or the Shemitah year, right? And then it starts to talk about in verse 9, the trumpets of Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month,
Okay.
which is Yom Kippur. So I was wondering, in verse 9 it talks about Yom Kippur, but then again, after that, verse 10, it goes right back to talking about Jubilee. So is there a reason why that's inserted there? And what am I missing?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I get your question. Because you have leaps in here. Remember, so when you read it in Leviticus 25, you're going from Sukkah, and then you're talking about Jubilee. There's a reason for that definition. So before you tell me to figure it out, why don't you open this up and start? What does the word say? She still there?
Well, that's why I'm asking, sir, because I couldn't understand why it's talking about after it's talking about the 7th.
All right, so why don't you just take us to the word? Let's start from there, and then you guide us through your reading that brought us to this question. It feels so good. It feels so good to say that.
All right, we're going to start at Leviticus 25 and 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When you come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Shabbat unto Yahweh. 6 years you shall sow thy field, and 6 years you shall prune thy vineyard and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Shabbat of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for Yahweh. Thou shalt neither sow thy field nor prune thy vineyard. That which groweth of its own accord of thy harvest thou shalt not reap, neither gather the grapes of thy vineyard, for it is a year of rest unto the land. And the Sabbath of the land shall be meat for you, shall be meat for thee, shall be meat for thy servant, shall be meat for thy maid, for thy hired servant, and meat for thy stranger that sojourneth with thee. And for thy cattle, and for the beasts that are in thy land. Shall all the increase thereof be meat.
Please read verse 7 again so you can get it right.
I'm sorry, my iPad went off.
I'm gonna need you to get that charge, like Apostle Walker saying. Mm-hmm. All right, so verse 7.
Verse 7. And for the cattle and for the beasts that are in thy land shall all the increase thereof be meat. 8. And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of the 7th Sabbath of years shall be unto thee 49 years. Verse 9. Then shalt thou cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall you make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And then 10, and ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and you shall return every man unto his possessions, and ye shall return every man unto his family. Should I keep reading?
What's your what? You're what are you doing? What you got?
So my question was, we see it's talking about the 7th year, and then it talks about Jubilee, the 49th year, and then when it gets to 9, it says, and you shall cause the trumpet of Jubilees to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month.
Which is Yom Kippur.
10, right.
Which is Yom Kippur.
I was getting ready to say in the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, shall you make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. So it jumps from Jubilee, which would technically be Shavuot, and goes to Yom Kippur. So I was wondering, what am I missing and what's this?
I don't know where you get Shavuot from.
Isn't the 50th year, isn't that Jubilee where we got the Pentecost?
No, you're thinking the 50th day. You're talking about years.
Okay.
So verse 1, this is really good because I want everybody to catch this. So in verse 1, it sets the precedent for the conversation in Leviticus 25. In verse 1, it tells you as it relates to the Sabbath for the land. Now the Sabbath day for the human and the Sabbath that Yahweh then incorporates for the land is a little bit different. So every 7th day we rest, right? Every season, 3 times a year, 3 times a year do we come before the Father and rest, right? Every 7th day in that 365 cycle, we rest. But then when he takes a year, he makes a Sabbath for the land by the years. So every 7th year, rather than the 7th day for man, the land must rest. And then every 50th year, like what you saw in Pesach, where he says, after the first fruits, you take 7 Sabbaths, add 1 day, that's 50. The number 50 is probably where the thought shifted to Shavuot. Though it's after the model of Shavuot, it is not the season of Shavuot. It is when the trumpet blows in the Shemitah or the Jubilee year. Every 7th is a Shemitah year. 7 Shemitahs plus 1 year equals a Jubilee year. So 7 times 7 is 49. And then 1 additional year on Yom Kippur do you blow the shofar for the year of Jubilee. Now, I once said, and I was in error many years ago, that there would not be another year of Jubilee. And that was an error statement. And I had to own that, was rebuked for that by Ruach, and also went to understand the depth of that, which we'll talk about this coming fall. Winter months after the fall feast. And so the land has Sabbaths, but they are in years. The human has Sabbaths in weeks. The land has to provide for the human. But then Yahweh tells the human tilling the ground, A, you gotta have to let the land take a rest so that it can do what it does naturally, and then let it grow wild. Don't maim it, don't tame it, don't till it, don't prune it, don't do nothing. Let it all just run. Let the wild take it, get what you own, gather what you need to harvest, but let strangers, everybody consumes in the year of Jubilee. Give back all debt securities to anybody who has debt to you. Give them back their land, give them back all that they have. And that's what Shemitah and Jubilee are, but they are about the land, and those Sabbaths are years, not days. Does that help a little bit?
Yes, it does. So if I'm understanding you correctly, when you celebrate this year, the trumpet is blown for it during that year of Yom Kippur.
Correct.
Okay.
Or during the season of Yom Kippur, it just, okay, let me say it the way you said it. Yeah, what you said, in your head you got it right, but you said it in a way that might be conflicting. So whenever the yearly feast of the 50 comes, whenever the yearly 50 comes, the 50-year Sabbath comes, it's identified and triggered by the blowing of the shofar in the head of the year, Yom or Sukkah, the blowing of the trumpet for Yom Teruah. But for the Jubilee to start, it's blown in Sukkah, as we do every year, or it's blown in Yom Kippur, as we do every year. So don't confuse that. Yom Teruah is also Sukkah. Yom Kippur, 10 days later, is Sukkah. However, in Sukkah, the blowing of the trumpet for Yom Teruah is the beginning of the civil year, and what many people are connecting with Rosh Hashanah, which is a whole different thing. But 10 days later, there is the Day of Atonement, which you still blow a shofar for each feast season, each feast day, each appointed time. And for Yom Kippur, you are blowing it because it is a year of total redemption. It is the time that signifies total redemption, because the Father, you're standing before the Father. So there is total redemption, total restore of who you are and what you are back to you. So in the Sabbath, in the commandment for the Sabbath of the land, and the year's Sabbath for the land, when they accumulate, the Jubilee is triggered by the shofar of Yom Kippur's blow, not Yom Teruah's. So I might have made that more complicated for some of y'all.
No, that's another point, because we do blow the trumpet in Yom Teruah, but it's not triggered until you blow it in Yom Kippur.
Sukkah and Yom Kippur, exactly.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Glad you studied that out. Good point. Did anybody find that appealing, or anybody find that informative, or make you think, or anybody this day old?
Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm this day old on the explanation. That's
Because a lot of people are talking about, oh, Jubilee, and have no clue what Jubilee is. Not a clue. You're just looking for a reason to jump and shout and scream and holler and think you're taking off time from work. Jubilee is a collective of Shemitahs, just like the first fruits of Pesach in the spring. You count 7 Sabbaths, add a day, and you get to what you call Pentecost, but is known as Shavuot, right? The reason that there is a Jubilee or there is a celebration, because you're getting the word of Elohim. And that's what's necessary. And most people don't really grab that, because we're so selfish, thinking about we getting the Jubilee, we got a party, when it's the land being healed. And right now, we don't pay attention to that, especially as Christians, because the governments of this world primarily run the land, claiming making sure that everybody eats. So they have some contract and some stipulation with the land, and they're just thinking the land gonna keep churning as long as they keep putting chemicals and do what they do. And you're hurting the land. We're killing the land. We're not tilling the ground the way Yahweh intended. And this is a process of tilling the ground. Let it rest every 7 years. Just let it rest. Just let it grow wild. Everything, the death, the fertilization, the birds, the deers, the cows, the dogs, everything will fix itself. All the weeds, you can keep it trim, but let it grow wild. Eat the fruit that comes off of it, but don't regulate it. And we don't do that because government is about regulation, and we're not in our regulations giving certain lands or lands as we use them in rotation to rest. So because money is at play and the claim that we got to keep producing, even though we got all this waste, right? They're claiming that, money is at play here. And so we not following the writ, not living our business based on the guides and the commandments of he who made the dirt. We're just doing it thinking that our intellect and our intelligence and our discoveries can make the dirt do more. Right? Basically put it on steroids. So Elohim is like, look, just let the land rest every 7 years. And then when you get to the 49th year, let it rest then. But watch this. You're actually going to let it rest for 2 years for Jubilee. Because you let it rest the year of Shemitah. And then the extra year, which makes 50. So the 7th Shemitah is 49 years. Then the 50th year right after is the year of Jubilee. So it rests for 2 years. Everybody eats. You still collect your stuff as owner, but let it grow wild. You can still grab your stuff and make money at the market, but let it grow wild. Don't plant. Let it do its natural planting on its own. And you'll find out that certain of your areas need to be redug and redone because they were only living off the regulation you gave it. It wasn't living off of natural abilities in the earth to continue producing fruit, vegetation, or whatever. And so Yahweh is very unique in the sense that he has a very specific process that is beautiful. And just let the earth rest every 7 years. And then on the 50th year, from the 49th year, let it rest again. And the earth will do for us what it can do and has always done throughout time. That's Yahweh's commandment. But we so deep, we need to make money, and we've not been taught to practice rest and Sabbath for the land. Okay? Hope you guys are getting that. Moderators, where you at?
Elder Rogers is next, sir.
Elder Rogers, what you got?
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. This portion of the conversation brought up.
I'm not sure if it's me or if it's you, but you're going to have to speak up.
Okay. This portion of the conversation brought back to mind the last. Can you hear me?
Are you speaking to your microphone or are you speaking with your head away from it?
I think what happened, I had Clubhouse on as well as YouTube, but I'm turning YouTube off, so I'm strictly listening to Clubhouse now.
Okay, I have no echo. I just need you to make sure you, whatever you're speaking into, you're speaking, your voice is near it. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Oh my God. Ta-da. Go ahead.
Ta-da. Okay. All right, so this portion of the conversation brought back to mind the last time we did the Shemitah.
Okay.
Then it went into the Jubilee.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure out when the last Jubilee was.
Mm-hmm.
It just escaped my memory.
And I knew the last time we did it, you did make that statement about we may not be able to see another one. But while I was looking up Jubilee, I came into some things that, there's more than one type of Jubilee. And so it was like, I already know, since that's another faith system, not even to worry about that. But it would just be real interesting. I would love to see or live through another Jubilee. And the Shemitah, I know, is every 7 years. I understand that. And I was just wondering, how could we literally just go about honoring Shemitah in the way that it says when we have all of these laws of the land, shall I say? That was just a thought and a question that came to mind.
How can we what?
Okay, if you're not supposed to cultivate, you're not supposed to, you're just supposed to let the ground rest. That doesn't mean you're not supposed to mow your lawn or mow your...
No. It doesn't mean you don't maintenance it. It means you don't regulate it to produce. It's going to produce on its own. Yeah, you can also throw some fertilizer on it, but you're not marking out, rows for,
You're not doing real farming.
You're not farming, right. You can go out there and pick. You want it to basically turn into a wild place. Let it grow on its own. The seed will produce on its own. You'll still, because you've been harvesting something there so long, you'll still have that product coming out of it. But just let it grow. Let the grass grow. Now you can go in there and trim it down, get a hatchet or machete and chop down the grass you can walk through. But let it grow so you can get, let the fruit grow naturally, let the vegetation grow naturally. Of course, water it, whatever. You're still managing it, but you're not regulating it to produce because man has a need. He's also saying, and let the neighbors come and eat. I mean, get your stuff, owner. But let the deers come, let the warthog come, let the gophers come. I mean, all that's an issue, but let them come. Let the wild eat of the earth. That's what it's there for, not just for you. Though you own that plot, I want you to release it so it can get back to being wild again. And in that, there's so much that gets transferred into the soil because you can regulate it to only do this thing. And it's not wild anymore. It's now contained. Let it get wild again.
And so therefore I got that. Now, I guess you might say I'm being too technical or overthinking. Now, if I have a raised bed garden, that doesn't comply with that. That has nothing to do with the raised bed garden.
I'm sorry, say what? If you have a raised bed
garden, yes. If
you're not in dirt,
right? I'm planting in buckets or things such.
Okay, I get your raised bed. I get that, or planterns or whatnot. Right? We're talking about that, from a different space. But even with that, if it's dirt in there, let it go. Let it grow out. Okay. Matter of fact, what I would recommend doing is just dump the plantern back into the dirt. Yeah. Okay. All right then. Thank you for your thoughts. Next, who's next on queue, mods?
No one else in Clubhouse, sir.
All right. Anybody online?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm Tara.
Minister Phillips made a statement on here. She says, no wonder the ground is groaning. Yes, it's waiting for humanity to comply with the instructions of the word. You can read that in Romans chapter 8, if you deep. Minister Wanda says, it's like a reset, and the land knew to honor the 7-year Sabbath, and the land knows how to fix itself. Of the oil leaks, toxic leaks, the earth knows how to fix itself. in a seventh year rest, in a Jubilee rest. Just like your human body knows how to fix itself if you just rest in Sabbath with Elohim. All right.
Wow, that's deep.
That is deep. I'm hoping somebody catch that. Hey, CyberSec. He states that 7 has value in every area of our lives. Yes, it does. Okay. The natural things that are there. So it's pretty deep. The earth knows how to fix itself. Cyber makes another statement. He says, Cyber says, we have enough land to let the land rest for 7 years. We really do. That's super easy. But we both concur on this. Capitalism just refuses to allow that. And it's not just capitalism, it's also communism. It's also because they are separate segments. So every government trying to be the greatest government, regulating itself out of provision. So yes, great statement. All right. I'm hearing from Santana. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, Santana, what you got?
I just got 2 questions because that point that Minister Wanda brought up, I could be wrong, but it sounds like I read all the way through Exodus 2 this morning, and I believe it mentioned what you're saying, where you should let the land rest, and I think what you're saying about let it the poor glean from it and other wild animals.
Correct.
It was in Exodus at some point around, I can't remember, it's 20 somewhere.
Correct.
Down somewhere.
Correct.
Okay, so my concern, okay, I got 2 points. One is those things never go away. Like, and I know it says a lot.
Slow down. You say those things never go away. What you mean?
So you know how, like, even how we're talking now about how the land and how the United States handles
No,
the
we don't get in trouble talking about the United States. We're just talking about governments.
Okay, governments. So that's the right wording. So, like governments, how they handle farming, and not just them. I think all of us
Right.
that handles farmland. I've only met one woman who said she'd done this and she's seen the difference, and that was the first time I ever heard.
I need you to stay focused on that question I have. What do you mean these things don't change?
So that's why I'm bringing it up, is how do we know, like, how most people believe the Old Testament is no longer. Usually there has to be something in the New Testament that counts. These things about keeping the land for 7, letting the land rest for 7 years, things like that. Okay. It doesn't go away. Nothing says to stop it, right? Because
we are made from the earth. And the earth been doing that, resting and creating as Elohim would declare. And now that he's made us managers over the earth, we should follow his instructions. So you're right. Those things should never not be in play. But we think we know more than he who made the clay. Bars. Go ahead.
You're right. The second one was to the Jubilee point. I didn't count I don't even know, because I believe last year I was hearing people across Clubhouse and Facebook like, this is the year Jubilee. How do you know it? How is it counted to know when?
Okay, we do know how to accumulate the times of Jubilee. I will admit I stopped counting for the years of Shemitah and the year of Jubilee because we were watching only one more. There's only one more thing that needs to manifest before we enter into the millennial reign. But when I went back to do my factoring on calculating the years and how 1,000 years is as one day and one day is as 1,000 years, I find we're only in the range of 6,000. Though he could come at any time. there's going to be a little bit more living on this earth, and the ozone layer still has some time before it's completely depleted. And therefore, there is strong probability we will see more Jubilee years. Now, we're only living so long, so I've already experienced one. Only Yahweh knows if I'll experience another year of Jubilee. But there is a proper way to calculate the years of Jubilee. I will be doing that in the season after Sukkot. When we teach on Leviticus 27, we'll teach on Leviticus 25. So I'll go from Leviticus 23, Sukkot, which is what we're doing now, and then we'll go to Leviticus 25, which speaks about the yearly Sabbath, the land Sabbath, and then we'll go to Leviticus 27, where it talks about how we properly utilize and take care of the tabernacle from that. So there is a very scientific and systematic way to deduce the proper days, just like we're going to do probably on Wednesday. I may even do it tomorrow. I might even come back on tonight and do it, where we calculate the days for next year's Sabbaths, Moedim, because as of tomorrow, as of Monday at sundown, the year 5786 begins. A whole new year. So I want to give you the holy days for the years 5786. And I'm going to show you how to do it in the event that Yahweh should take me off the earth. Do you know how to fish for this yourself? So I'm going to show you how you learn accurately and properly and undeniably the days of the Moedim. Okay? And in that same order, we will teach you and show you all how to actually articulate and do what is, in fact, those particular things that are the Torah. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Anytime. Now, if you look at this calendar here, I put the wrong thing up here, but if you look at the calendar here, you'll see that these days, somebody had to correlate Tishri 1 to September 22, Tishri 10 to October 1st, Tishri 15 to October 6th, Tishri 22 to October 13. We had to bring those things to you in the way his word states. So that's a process we go through, and we show you how to do that. I don't care who comes to you and tells you that that's wrong or that's right. You're going to know it because you're going to know it for yourself. All right? So let me just help you out with something now, because we got Tishri 1 coming up on September the 22nd. Today's the 20th. At sundown on the 22nd till sundown on the 23rd is Tishri 1, and that will be the blowing of the shofar. It will also be confused with Rosh Hashanah. What? Why would you say confused? The Jews told us it's Rosh Hashanah. I love the Jewish people, but they got their own unbelief. When you follow the writ, the Torah, we don't celebrate Rosh Hashanah. Though Rosh Hashanah has a beautiful history with its people and its ethnicity, we don't disrespect it. But your commandment is to honor the 24 hours of Yom Teruah. Rosh Hashanah is 48 hours. So the 24 is Yom Teruah. They added to the commandment to do more things. And that's no problem for that ethnicity, because they got their own testimony of what Yahweh did as to why Rosh Hashanah has become something that they celebrate, and they coupled it with Yom Teruah. So the blowing of the shofar is very specific and very intentional. Then Yom Kippur, very specific, very intentional. And the point to this is that we have these times coming. There are ways to depict them and to know what they are. So we'll be going over that after Sukkot, so that you can start putting your request in for your days off in the spring, in the summer, and next year this time, so that you can have your HR know what times you need to be off. Also with that, on Tishri 1 and on Tishri 10, on Tishri 15 and on Tishri 22, which specifically speaks with September 22nd, October the 1st, October the 6th, October the 13th, you will be required to bring before Yahweh for his feasts your lamb. Okay? So be prepared for that. We'll be teaching you about that. And so you'll understand what that looks like from the writ. Does everybody understand that that is a requirement of Yahweh or Elohim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wanda makes an interesting statement here. She goes on to say, I find it interesting that others honor the holy days, but theirs are different from ours. And that is because you have as, okay, I'll touch this because it's important. The ignorance, and I say this with my heart and no ill intent, the ignorance of thinking that the Torah was given to the Jews. And that whenever you hear modern day a Jewish Judaism person tell you, here is what Torah says, and this is the way it's always been, it's captivating to me. But the fact that we don't realize that the Torah is also celebrated and lived by a Samaritan group of people who we call the lost tribes of Israel, which again supports the fact that the Torah was never given to the Jews. It was given to Israel. Israel, disobeying the Torah, ended up breaking apart into two separate groups, Samaritans and the Judeans, Jews, Samaria. And the Samaritans, by a king, we'll talk about another time, he didn't want the people coming back together ever at Jerusalem, so he changed the dates, and he changed the times, and he changed the cities in which they were to gather so that they could never come back together because of his insecurities. Though Yahweh prophesied he'd be in control of that group, he in his own way was insecure and never wanted nostalgia to kick in, never wanted, remembrance of what it was like when we were all together. So that not being preached enough inside of churches causes you and I to stay in derision with each other because we don't think it's necessary, or confusion. But why their date's different than those dates? Well, I just explained that to you just like that. Just read 1 Kings. When Rehoboam and Jeroboam had the civil war, the Torah, Israel was one. But when Rehoboam and Jeroboam had the civil war, Israel divided. The Torah went with both. But Jeroboam changed the dates, the times, and the places. Rehoboam, having Benjamin, Judah, and the migrating tribes of Levi back to Jerusalem, kept it better to the dates that were in the Torah. And so you have differences in dates there. So the Samaritans did the feast a month later than when they were. The Samaritans did the feasts in the mountains and in the city of Dan, rather than in the city of Jerusalem where the tabernacle was. So just as the foundation for why there is that deviation, Minister Wanda, I hope that that helps, because your question is very, very, very key. You've got people right now that I've taught Torah to, and the keeping of the feast. But because I teach you how to go and dig it out yourself, sometimes you go dig it out yourself and you think that you're greater than your teacher. And then you come back with things that haven't been vetted. And then because you feel like, well, you're my teacher, but I've outgrown you and I know better than you, and I'm going to go do what I want to do. Okay, you go do that. Go raise your house, go raise your home. But when your days are off, you got people that are celebrating it 2 days before and some celebrating it 2 days after. And that's because you're going off of a Judaistic celebratory schedule. You're not going off of the Torah calendar. If they say you need a day to prepare for Pesach, they make that Pesach and then they add it to the actual day of Pesach. And so you're celebrating a day earlier. But to explain all of that, you got to sit down in the Sabbath, sit down with the Rit, then explain it. And now everything is computerized at the fingertips. You're trying to figure it out and do it. And the dates are coming up wrong. So you got people who say they celebrate the same things we celebrate off season, but then in season are doing it in days and times that are not his prescription. If you just follow the Rit, the calendar is very simple to follow. We make it complicated because Christians and Judaism has always been at odds, even though there's now a Judeo-Christendom that exists. But the issue is there's information not shared from one side and sold as gospel to another side, and the need to know what they're selling is so overwhelming that we believe anything that gets packaged from that side because we're listening to their version of the thing we're hoping they're selling us, but it's not. And at the end of the day, you have us buying a package that is doing way too much. Thus, we do way too much. So when you think that it is your responsibility to celebrate, let's just keep it to Torah related stuff and keep it between Christendom and Judaism. I can go a million different ways with this, but I'm going to go one way. Just keeping it to those two things. If you think that it is your responsibility as a Christian to mandatorily celebrate Hanukkah because you think that that is a command of Elohim, again, you've been sold a package that's doing way too much. Because to those that sold you that holiday, it is an ethnic holiday. It is a miracle that was performed to that ethnicity. And they commemorate Elohim by it. But it is not a command of Elohim to celebrate Hanukkah or Purim and the like. To know what the holy days are is found in the Leviticus. So Rosh Hashanah is celebrated by that ethnicity. And because a miracle was performed for them around that time, and they commemorate it around the blowing of the shofar, which is a commanded celebration of Elohim. So when you add the ethnic miracle and commemoration to the commandment of Yahweh's instruction, you add hours and a day to the day because you're celebrating something other than Elohim. Pardon me, you're celebrating something as an ethnicity of what Elohim did for you. But for anyone who's not the ethnicity, he didn't do that for us. We celebrate the Torah because that is the commandment. You have something to celebrate. You got a testimony that's awesome. I will celebrate with you, but it's not a commandment to celebrate it. Yom Teruah, not Rosh Hashanah, is to be celebrated. Rosh Hashanah can be participated in because it's a great story of what Elohim did for this beautiful ethnicity. But where we get it twisted, we always do way too much because we don't study it. And we deem them an authority. We deem them the voice of God, the chosen of God, and that has to be viewed properly. And that's why we just go along with whatever they did or are doing. And there you have it.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So you got it. And I think Minister Wanda, I put it on the screen, Minister Wanda made a statement. That's what I mean. That's what I'm seeing. Not separating the Torah commandments from the religion's celebrations. Exactly right. All right. Well, Zion, you know what? It's been a couple of hours, and I'm going to go and have me some more tea. To help with my detoxing. It's such a cool day today. I usually can't sit out here, but it's so cool. The birds are chirping in the background. It's a pleasure talking with you guys, but it appears that there are no more studies that you guys have, and y'all not going to have me in in non-compliance to the writ teaching y'all all day because y'all don't want to study. Wanda, thank you for opening up the writ and digging it out. So I'll probably come back on in a few hours later before West Coast gets out of their Sabbath, but I want to remind you all, tomorrow I'll be teaching on Sukkah, I'll be teaching on Yom Teruah, I'll be teaching on the whole feast of Sukkah, the requirements. You are not to be at work, your children shouldn't be at school, but again, that's the commandment. You do what you're going to do, right? That's all I'm going to say about that right there. But that's where we are. And you also have your lambs. You have your lamb to give. Remember, you got those days that we put on calendar for you as the times we gather. But you do know those are 4 days: Tishri 1, Tishri 10, Tishri 15, Tishri 22, September 22nd, October 1st, October 6th, and October 13th. Now, those are days that we actually gather, and we will be having a ceremony each of those days, multiple ceremonies actually, on this channel for those of you that are a part of the Rosh Kingdom Ministries. Okay? And we do the feast every year. They will be up for the time of the feast, but then taken down right after. But we here at the Rosh Kingdom Ministries gather via virtual technology and virtual, and we have that. We do electronic everything. So the lambs and all are still required. They are monetized out. However, though we gather for those 4 days, there are several days, 5 more particular days that we don't gather, but we are in the season of Sukkah. And every day there are lambs required. The 4 that we gather, the only ones we tell you all about and that y'all do. But if you read the writ for yourself and you look to comply with Elohim, you'll see that there is requirements that we should do if we're pleasing to the Father and desiring that. So somebody said to me one time, we were reading it, and not just reading it, we're reading something else, and it always sticks with me. And they were transitioning from typical Christendom to kingdom style, and they were reading it and like, you mean to tell me this has been sitting here the whole time? And we were like, yes, it has. I was with my apostle at that time, and this was a young minister under me, with me rather, who I was raising up. And but in his other church before he came over, he was minister and title and all this. And as we're sitting down just studying casually, me and my apostle brought him in because I wanted him in that circle. And he was like, I don't want to know no more. You mean to tell me all this has been sitting in here? And we're like, yeah, you want to see where? No, I don't want to know where. I don't want to know no more. I know it's too, I don't believe it. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I want to do something else. I don't want to go. So that was what he was. It was so funny. I'll never forget that. So remember, when you're studying Torah, you're always going to find more about what Yahweh wants of you, which doesn't correlate with what your service in the communities saying you should do based on religion and church. It's a big difference. So I'm hoping that you guys will join us. Those of you who understand now, listen, the Moedim are for those who know. If you don't know and you really sincerely want to know, we welcome you. But if you're just coming to be a wallflower and just pick and choose a spot to sit on the wall and you're not going to participate, please don't do yourself any injustice, because you will then find yourself like the person that Yahweh gave talents to. You knew what he wanted and you still decided to do what you want to do. You knew, okay, here's what we're going to do with them that know. So for those of you who want to be a part and are a part because it's your lifestyle, those of you who are curious, you want to learn more, so it can be, man, we welcome you. All are welcome to come. All are welcome to come. But I caution you, don't come and not participate, because that is a disrespect to Elohim. And if you don't know and you don't know what it looks like, join us back tomorrow. I'll be talking about it. You can contact me privately as well. Just go to our webpage, Apostle Jones, VWJ Ministries, and our elders will get you on a book with us to sit down and explain to you from the Bible what it looks like, what the Torah says, what we are to do. So we welcome you. But I'm going to take a break right now. I may come back on a little bit later while West Coast is still in their Sabbath, and keep studying with you guys to get through. For the East Coast, I know you're sort of kind of winding down, and it's just been healthy and good to be with you. Don't forget, get your lambs ready and get your times ready. We're going to give you the schedule. We're going to do the schedule with you all for next year, the year 786 until 787. 7586, 7587, sorry. And that'll be part of your 2025-2026 season. And we'll teach you how to do all that. You don't have to not know how to get the dates and know the years. We'll make sure you know that. Well, it's been a joy chatting with you. Prayerfully, we'll get the chance to see you again soon, since there are no questions and thoughts. Let us pray out. Yahweh, we thank you for your word, will, and purpose. We ask you that you would bless these your people as they continue to study your Torah. Open up your book, open up your will, open up your way, and learn of you, learn you, know you. Bring healing to bodies, minds, hearts, physical, mental, spiritual, relational, marital, businesses. Bring healing to them as they take in the word that brings life. This I pray you now. In the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, our Savior and our King. We love you to life eternal, Yahweh. Amen.
This is the place for you. Don't need to complicate it. It's best to keep it basic. Open the book, the word is self-approved. He's Alpha and Omega, the answer since the early ages. What you should do is learn about the greatest. Just so you know, our door is always open. Let's study together instead of debating. Share our differences. Let love heal all that's broken.